Joe, I always look forward to our chats. I learned so much from you, and have really, enjoyed watching your trajectory. Obviously we've got some synergies, both being leaders at Microsoft, both being authors, and I really think highly of your philosophies around sales and leadership. Hot topic right now. Deals that go south. Not something that I think we spend enough time really digging into and analyzing. I'd love to hear your insights, specifically as a deal, not even always necessarily goes south, but we get all these kinks in the process, or we get, unanticipated hurdles. How do you, as a sales professional, as a sales leader, how do you grapple with these and, still bring the deal home?
I love this because, there's so many, as being an author yourself, and, you have to be a student first of sales. And in studying sales, it's rare, everyone wants to talk about the perfect deal. And then, I don't know about you, but I've always felt a little bit of imposter syndrome. You read a great book, you come back from sales training, you're like, yes, I've got it. And then you're engaged in the sales cycle and you're like, oh no, I don't, because it's not running like that. The ideal sale, I've got the Frankenstein sale. It's not happening the way that I read about in the book. And now what do I do? And I believe that that's the genesis of a lot. Selling is passion, it's strategy, all rolled into one. And when you get, emotion and, timing, you're like, okay, I need this deal to either hit my quota, to feed my family. And we bring a lot into the sales situation that books, generally don't talk about. They don't talk about, what do I do if or when? They're like, follow this process, 995, and you'll get it right all the time. And I found it's rarely that case. So then what do you lean back to? You paint a good picture of that in Salesman on Fire. It's like, it comes down to this ethos that you have, your mindset, who you are as a sales professional, and you go back to basics. You're like, okay, I know and I'm convinced that this offer is right for my customer. I believe they're convinced that it's right for them. So now we just have to work at it together. And one of my influencers here a long time ago, I'll have to say, is I don't know if you ever read Ian Altman, Same Side Selling.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's brilliant. He's like, get on the same side of your customer.
I mean, I think that's really it. You started this off just brilliantly, Joe, because it's about being a student of the selling game. And I'm a proponent of going out and absorbing all of these, different materials and different mediums and things that will help inform and influence you in certain situations. But rarely, if ever, do you get kind of that brilliant, beautiful deal where the planets align. There's stops and starts. There's reality. There's changes in their executive makeup, right? There's changes in their priorities. I mean, I've seen deals that have 2-3 year sales cycles where the entire executive leadership team has changed over multiple times. How do you reposition and make moves in those types of situations? And obviously, you being the author of $1 billion Sales Secrets, I mean, in order to have $1 billion in sales results, obviously you've seen a lot of the deals that went right, where you could get across the finish line. But also, I think we need to do more to do postmortems on some of these deals that don't necessarily go the way we think they will. But we learn from that gotcha aha moment that got us on this deal, but you better believe it'll never get me again. I think the other element that I would throw out there too, Joe, is emotion. You hit on this. You can't have that knee-jerk, emotional reaction to what transpires as a part of the process. It's very easy because, these are deals that get people paid, they make people's years, they put food on the table. It's really easy to have, a very strong emotional vested interest in this. But I think, one of your philosophies is kind of, take that step back, revisit, recalibrate, make sure we're aligned to customer milestones. I always like to use their words. Hey, you indicated how important it was that we had this done by X date because of XYZ priority. You said that this is your budget, this is your priority. what's changed? I mean, if we're going to still deliver this by the timing that we agreed upon, I'm starting to have some concerns based on, the current trajectory. How do we get back on track to your milestone? Make it about them.
Right. Their language is so powerful. If we listen, and that's the thing is there's lots of I like to use this term of, don't be a display listener. When you go in and talk to your customer, to me, display listening is we've all done this and we've all seen it, so it's like you're there and you're like, oh, yeah. But going beyond that means engaging and asking a real important question. And, I coach my sales team on this. Whenever we get to that point in our sales cycle where the customer is saying yes, we're so thrilled. We're like, yes, awesome, I got it. I've got this deal exactly where I'd planned for it up front, and we're here. 90% of the people just close down and run away. And if you ask that next question, like you said, hey, I'm really interested in why now? What's the important, and hopefully you've gotten up to this, but it's that extra question that you ask that really distinguishes you from the rest. If you're curious enough to really, be empathetic with your customer and understand what's driving their behavior forward, what business metrics they're trying to hit. Is it a promotion in store for this particular person? What does it really mean? It's a great way to uncover all kinds of stuff. And a good story that we just had, in a deal that I'm working with today, it's two different sellers working the same deal because one of the sellers had to leave due to a family emergency. And so it's like a tale of two deals, and it's a tale of two mindsets, which makes it a great story, and it's also recency. But, seller A was like, oh, this deal's falling apart. I don't know what's going on. Everything. To your point, we went back to what was important to them, their language. Seller B came in, looked at the notes and said, all right, catch me up. This is what you said was important. This date was good. We have the right offer. What gives? We're like, oh, we need this. And he's like, in order to make this happen, we need this today. And customer was like, okay, great. I get it. Today, sign the paperwork, left the PO out, go in the processing the deal, and it's not there. And the signer said, oh, I'm gonna have to go to my CFO now and get it, but I have to run to this meeting and everything. Most people, again, would say, okay, this is messed up. I'm just going to listen to the customer and what they are saying. But this particular seller listened and then said, hey, I know this is important to you. I know you're running to a meeting. Do you mind if I call the CFO and get that for you?
There you go.
Cha-ching. That's what happened.
That's the thing. There's so many controllables in these dynamics, but the biggest controllables are things that are, should be common sense, like listening, like meeting customers where they are. I always tell my team, and this is something that I always abided by, is find out what looks like a win to everybody in the room. And I will look back, Joe, on some of the most, what I felt were most impactful deals that I've ever done or had. And I mean, none of them went off without a hitch. None of them were easy. In fact, one very distinct, one that's very distinct in my mind was an award-winning deal that, I mean, I'd say within the last week, all the jockeying for position and this and that, and, we're going to have this added step in the process that we didn't anticipate, that we never, told you about. It's like how you adapt and adjust to some of these things, and especially when you're in the heat of the battle, you have no idea like what's negotiation, what's legitimate. So sometimes you have to leave it on the field, but you've also got to own the construct of the deal. You certainly can't keep bending and caving, and there is an element of it that is posturing, but everybody's got to walk away with a win. You got to understand, like, whoever you're dealing with from the customer vantage point. Sometimes it's the CEO, but often, there's CFO and some of the other C-levels, VPs have their fingerprints on this deal. You've got to make sure that you've armed them with something that, like you said earlier, satisfies some of these key metrics, outcomes, and drivers. And I love your sentiment as well about having that curiosity, because if you understand what this empowers them to do, what this deal empowers them to do, that's, you've uncovered their why. And now you know what to keep revisiting as you recall, like, hey, I understand that this is important because you need to be delivering this. And I guess the last thing I would ask and add on that is that, have you as a seller really gone through the due diligence of, what matters to you and your team? What matters to your organization that you are an ambassador of? If you are transparent with your customer about what matters to you and your team and your company and why, and you really are curious about the outcomes that they care about and what looks like a win to them, that's where you can form the perfect relationship, because you care about each other's mutual priorities. There's a transparency to that. That's how deals get done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And one thing that I was thinking as you were talking about that, again, the thing that I go back to is I think that there's a lot we bring to the table in terms of mindset. And we always convince ourselves that, by not being curious, you start to convince yourself that you might not be good enough. And I wouldn't be sharing this if I hadn't experienced myself. I felt that way, but I've noticed that there's really kind of two types. You've got the the person who handicaps themselves and limits themselves, and they're like, okay, I'm an imposter here. And then you've got the other side of the coin, which is the overcompensator, the person who is always working super hard to avoid failure at all costs, and they risk burnout. So in these two scenarios, the mindset is really driving these behaviors in the seller. And then looking at the customer situation, the customer hasn't changed. The sale is what it is. And you haven't developed a model of reality. It's your perception of reality. Oh, they've never worked with me before, therefore they won't work with me again. I've got a customer, I won't reveal who it is. I'll try not to reveal who it is, but they're owned by one of our competitors. And, people would tend to say, oh, they're not going to do business with us because of that reason. Well, guess what? They did business with us. So you will bring these things to the table, and they don't belong there. We set the table with our own junk.
So well said, Joe. I think it's critical. And we're working on obviously some planning going into our next fiscal year. I'm sure you're in the same boat and looking at, what is that big picture mindset that you can bring to the table? Okay, fair enough. If they've already ruled out, or it's already been ruled out that we can go down one specific path together, what are the other paths that we could pursue? What are the other resources that we could bring to bear? I think, the biggest part of being a seller, being an effective seller, is earning the right to be the trusted advisor. And that doesn't always look like, nor does it often look like, being a hero. You're not the hero. You want to make your customer the hero in the equation. And if you do that and you proactively seek wins for everybody involved, that's how you win. It isn't about, I think what I struggle with sometimes is that no matter what, no matter how well you lay out your plan, or you plan your attack of, account planning, or how good your knowledge is, it all matters about how you show up to your customer. Do you show up with unique value and point of view that matters to them? Do you seek to really truly understand what they're grappling with? Have you surrounded yourself with industry knowledge and trade magazines and things like that, so that you at least understand what makes them tick and what matters to them? And then have you very diligently looked at, how can I help create an outcome for them, even if it doesn't look exactly what I think it might look like? Are there resources that I can bring to them, an investment that I can make in them that could lead to a relationship, and then nurture that relationship over time? These are the things, again, that beget deals. I've seen so many times where, too, we've had situations where, the account team historically has chased this customer for years and they're not going to do anything, or they don't engage. It just takes one. It takes one piece of common ground in order to form something that turns into a project, that turns into pipeline, that turns into a potential deal. And that's the mindset that we have to take. Okay, if it isn't this avenue, could be this one. And that's why it doesn't matter. We're in a very competitive situation, right? I mean, we're in a scenario where, every customer we go into, there are competitive elements out there, and I'm not looking to replace all of them. I'm fully cognizant that there's going to be competition out there. Competition is good, but if we have unique differentiators and unique strengths as an organization, that's what we as sellers need to be thinking about.
Right.
That's the value that we bring that nobody else does.
And the customers are unique. They like to feel their own uniqueness, and it's grasping what they're saying, what they're all about. I love the going around and getting everyone's wins. And I remember doing something similar with a customer, and no one agreed what their wins were. As you went around the table, you're listening. And so as a sales professional, this could be like, oh, great, no one's agreeing on anything. Now what? All is lost. No, it's
I'd love that situation. That means you've got 10 different wins. I can bring 10 wins, not just one.
Right.
Mindset.
And when you're coming through that and you're listening to all of this, then you start to realize, okay, I've got 10 different people here. What's it going to take, for the person sitting over here? They're thinking about a promotion, so they're thinking, personally, positionally, I want to do this in the organization. And then, the other person over here might have like an altruistic kind of Holden selling methodology, Fox behavior type thing. But you get the insight of everyone, and things today are rarely decided by just one person. Right. So when you have that stakeholder right in front of you and all of those stakeholders, and you're hearing it in real time, I approach it with gratitude, because take a deep breath and say, how incredibly wonderful and blessed am I to be here listening firsthand instead of guessing. You can go back and, run this through your sales Gazenta machine and go, oh, I think this and that. I've heard this and that. No, I've heard 10 different things. And now it can create something that's going to be elegant, and it's going to meet the business needs. And if we're lucky, maybe it'll meet some of these needs around the table that we've agreed on as important. But also, you're bringing people together for the first time. Like, how many times have we seen this? You bring people together for the first time in a setting. That might have been the first time they've ever talked about this. They sent emails, they were sending IMs back and forth about this, but now they're all in agreement. And to me, it's I encourage, the ugly, because it means you're being real.
I love that, because here's the thing: the best relationships that you have, you sit in the pain together, right? So if we're having a painful scenario in this business relationship, sit in the pain together. Not every conversation that you have that leads up to a deal is going to be sunshine and rainbows and kumbaya and patting each other on the backs. In fact, I've had very contentious conversations leading up to deals getting done, but it's all been in the interest of delivering a win for them. And, I'm willing to do anything to bring those key elements together, but not everybody in the organization that you're working with likes it when you're talking to everybody else in that organization as well and uncovering their wins. There are elements that come out of that. And sometimes you step into the landmines that exist already inherently in that organization. But I ask yourself 2 questions as a seller. Number one, do you realize how much power you have to go out and find intelligence in this day and age? I mean, you can go out and find company reports and leverage their mission statements and the conversations that you're having with them. It shows that you're paying attention. So there's a lot of power in that. Second question being, do you realize sometimes how much influence that you can have if you go out and you understand all of the different facets of an organization? So like what you were just talking about, Joe, I'm in a room, I got 10 different people telling me what 10 different wins might look like. That's powerful, because now you're at the pulse of that organization. Mm-hmm. The other people that you talk to as you try to create relationships in that organization, you have valuable intelligence. And so as you reach out to these folks and you're doing prospecting and trying to create new relationships, you come from a position of strength. I've been spending time with your team, Mrs. VP, and this is some of the feedback I'm hearing. I'd love to share more and see where, we may be able to help deliver some wins with you, similar to what we've already done with XYZ company. How powerful is that? So do you realize how much influence sometimes you can develop if you understand everything about that organization and you add value to others in that organization? I've had sellers that have worked for me that their companies tell them, You are a phenomenal resource to me because you know more that's going on in my company than I do.
Yeah, it is. It's so powerful. And the research you can get from other people, bringing people together, doing your due diligence online. I always love prep. If you don't prep, you're not selling. I don't care if you talked to them before, check out the website, check out whatever. I love even going into Facebook. It's amazing what people share. They'll post pictures on their corporate Facebook of the birthday party that just happened. But, when you're reading, the 10Ks, it's all very stoic and bland, and it doesn't show you the essence of who they are. But it's that little edge of you being, better prepared than, other people who they may be talking about this with, and really hitting the nerve of what this is about. I love what you said about sitting in the pain, because when you're there and you understand what they're going through and what they're grappling with, and you understand the vision of what they're, I like to think of a lot of sales is how we control time, and understanding time, what happened in the past, where are we today, where do you want to go in the future? And those time elements, if you're, sitting in the pain with them today, you're developing a path forward to the future. And, getting there is what, all your creativity, your passion, your product and the company and everything that you bring to bear to the sale comes into effect if you act on it. It's latent until you bring all those things together and until you see those possibilities. But again, it's starting up here. If you if you go into it and say, we've never been successful, and then whenever I hear that, then I'm like, well, what's next out of your mouth? What are you thinking? Because whatever you tell yourself, if you believe you can or you can't, either way, it's true.
And that Henry Ford. And if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. Another good quote. Because I think,
Yep.
Joe, if anything, we've unearthed some controllables that people have. You control your mindset, how
Right.
you approach the situation. You control who you reach out to, how you show up. You can control the quality of your messaging. You can control the quantity of relationships that you attempt to create and nurture, and you control the consistency by which you execute over time. And I think, no matter how diligent you are, I mean, think of yourself as a coach. You assemble the team, you put the players on the field, but the game has to be played, and it doesn't go as you envision. I mean, no matter how much game tape you watch, you can't prepare for every possible scenario that's going to transpire. But you do get those opportunities to tweak here and there. Rarely do you scrap the entire game plan, but you
Right.
look at, where is this working that I want to double down? Where do I maybe want to adjust and recalibrate a little bit? And what changes might I want to make? But it always goes back to the process, to the people and the process. And if you know how people win, and you know what they care about, and you're transparent, you have solid communication, you're investing in that relationship, and you're ardent with your process, statistically, you can't lose. You're going to lose some deals here and there, but by the by, you'll win every time you can.
Yeah, I love it. That's some solid advice, people are getting here, and
I'm fired up.
I am too. It's like,
I want to go close a deal right now.
there's nothing else that gets me excited than having a little bit of like adrenaline like this. But it's clarifying to really understand that no matter what situation people are in, that they have the power and the ability to chart their own destiny. It's not left to chance. And no matter what anyone is engaged with in the sales process, if you think you're stuck, without a path forward, there's many times that I've just said, you know what, Mr. and Miss Customer, I'm stuck.
Or
I've
call
done
a Lifeline. What's
Yeah.
amazing to me? I was at a standstill in a deal once, and I literally, I didn't know what to do. And I called somebody who didn't even work for the same company, but it's just somebody I really respected from a sales perspective. We walked through the scenario, came up with kind of a painful way forward, but it was the right thing to do, and we got the deal done. right?
Yeah.
It's you've got to check your ego at the door sometimes. There is merit to, sometimes you do have to bend a little bit. You've got to meet customers closer to where they are than maybe you were initially willing to do or wanted to for whatever reason. There's some nasty battles that transpire sometimes in getting deals done, but at the end of the day, you want everybody to win. And I think that's the key. If you realize the controllables that you can control and you do a good job of controlling those, I'm a probability person. So you're going to give yourself the probability to win more often than not. And I based my entire career on that. Is just focusing on the probability, control the controllables, figure out the playing field, and know all those little nooks and crannies. And that's how you can come out ahead.
Like watching the world poker series on TV when they give the probability scales.
100%. 100%. It's like that. Or like that movie Moneyball, right? Data-driven approach of, I know that if I reach out to X number of clients with a quality message and, invest in the relationship and bring like the best resources to bear, I'll win more often than not. And that's the key. Train your brain to think big, but, stay disciplined to the process.
Yeah, I remember early on in my career, I had one of those 100-ball. I think I learned this when I was a stockbroker's assistant way back when. And it was a sheet of paper and it had 100 circles on it. And I would have to call people in Hemet, California and get them to attend this, this in-person, talk. And I'd call them and I'd check off all the people. And out of 100 dots on that, you'd have the discipline to go through that. And it would help encourage you to say, I'm only 25 through and there's 75 more opportunities to win. And it's, it may seem a little hokey, but we give up often far too easily without thinking of other ways to,
that's it.
To think things through. And that's why I love, the creative aspects of this. And it's the real thing when I approach $1 billion sales secrets is because I'd read all these sales books and all of them had degrees of truth. But in seeing the type of salespeople that I encountered, in my career at Microsoft, I saw $1 billion sellers at Microsoft and people who are covering big deals, but it wasn't one person. It's a story of all of us. If you really look behind the scenes, you'll see there's people in that book who I wrote about who probably still don't know that they're featured in some of the stories. I'll have to read it and go, that sounds vaguely familiar. I can relate to that. Well, yeah, I was talking about you.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a sum of the parts. You're going to pick up things throughout a career, and you're going to assimilate those things into your process. And it was Napoleon Hill that said in Think and Grow Rich that, we often, as a human race, I mean, we have a tendency to give up just shy of the finish line, just shy of where we would realize success if we had just persevered. That's how success happens, is just stay the course. Even when you're being dealt some of these unfair hands in a deal, just stay the course, stay true to your principles, stay true to the wins of the people involved. And more often than not, you'll come out ahead, but you've got to take the losses with the wins.
I just, I'm going to do an Instagram post or something. This is what success looks like before you cross the finish line. It's not all the perfect picture of like celebrating in champagne. It looks like this. It looks like
exasperation sometimes.
Yeah. Or just like, oh.
Don't get me wrong. Like, it's a sweet feeling when it happens, but the pain that goes into getting there, it's real.
Yeah, diamonds aren't
it makes
formed
it all
without
the
pressure.
sweeter. Yeah, it makes it all the sweeter.
And that's why, everyone who's won, we're preaching to the choir. People out there like, yeah, I know exactly what these guys are talking about. I've been there, done that. And it's and that's why there's few who answer the call to be sales professionals. And but it's why it's so great, because those variables, those controllables, to truly, this is a job and profession that I'll never become an expert at. There's always, I can learn negotiation. I can learn, the art of persuasion. I can learn, even demonstration skills. I can learn empathy. Lots of different avenues for improvement. But it's, it's check yourself at the door and never give up and keep your mindset right, keep going. So I love the advice you've given people, or we've given people today. and am always open to hearing how it impacts people and what their success is, what their outcomes are, and learning as we go with them.
Love that. I know we'll start some conversations based on what we shared today. And just remember, being a great seller is often a moment in time. It's, understanding the playing field and the parameters, how to show up best for your customers, all the things that we articulated today. But there's an element of perseverance. I mean, that's why consistency is the key to a long career, a successful career in sales, because success 5 years ago doesn't necessarily equate to success today. We've got to keep learning.
Yep.
Keep the customer at the heart of everything that we do, and show up the right way with the right mindset. So, Joe, this was awesome. Thank you so much. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go out and close some business. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Take care. This has been great. See you, Carson.
Bye-bye.